Good evening. It's really nice to see this nice crowd. It's a privilege that you all are here. This is the Westmont Lecture Series, Conversations About Things That Matter. I'm Bobby Kinnear, a member of the Westmont Foundation Board. It's the Westmont Foundation Board that sponsors the Westmont Downtown Lecture Series, which began over 18 years, maybe I should say over 19 years now. The series highlights important topics of the day and the most amazing Westmont faculty brings the information to you. This series is a gift to our community. The goal for those who attend is to enjoy meaningful, fundamental, and lively conversations. The series consists of 4 intriguing faculty discussions per year. This is the last program until next fall. So don't worry. We will work this summer to find 4 more absolutely very, very interesting topics and secure the faculty to support us on those interesting topics. Okay, and there will be 2 in the fall and 2 in the spring. May I ask how many of you have worked with AI, artificial intelligence? Raise your hands. Ooh, I thought there might be more. You'll love it. But anyway, I am pleased to introduce to you Dr. Kimberly Deneau, and she, in turn, will introduce our speakers tonight. Dr. Kim Deneau is the Provost and Dean of Faculty at Westmont. She joined Westmont August 2022 and has over 25 years of experience in executive leadership in Christian higher education. Previously, Kim worked as Vice President for educational programs for the Council of Christian Colleges in the universities of Washington, D.C. She spent much of her career at Azusa Pacific University as Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer, in addition to serving on local and national committees and boards. Kim has taught undergraduate and graduate students in 5 continents. Kim earned a Doctor of Philosophy in Sociology at the University of Florida, a Master of Social Work from Temple University, and a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology at Vanguard University. And, did I mention? I love this. Kim is a 2-time Fulbright Scholar. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Kim joyfully returned to California with Johannes, her husband of 20 years, got that, and their 3 children, 18 years, 15 years, and 12 years old. She's very busy. Kim works closely with Westmont Foundation Board in coordinating these special lectures. Thank you, Kim, for everything you do. Thank you for introducing, and thank you for everything you do for our Foundation Board. Thank you.
Well, good evening. Don't you guys look good tonight? It is so wonderful to have you come this evening. We're all in for a treat. We're going to hear from some amazing faculty members from Westmont. But before we do, I'd like for us to be able to loosen up a little bit. So look at your neighbor and say, you're in the right place. All right. You could look at the other one and say, well, maybe you're in the right place. But anyway, let me tell you a little bit about our 2 faculty who will be sharing with us tonight. First, Dr. Guang Song is a professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science. He received his master's degree in physics and doctorate in computer science from Texas A&M University in 1998 and 2003, respectively. His main research interests are in computational structural biology, which is an interdisciplinary research area that involves multiple disciplines, including math, computer science, biology, and physics. His research was awarded the NSF Career Award, which is the National Science Foundation Career Award, which is a big deal. It really is. Dr. Song is a gifted teacher and scholar. He has a heart for people and for ministry. He and his wife, Mindy, are the proud parents of 4 amazing children. And I will add this, one of my daughters was at the same school as Guang's children. And she did win an award, but I thought, Guang's children are stealing all of the awards. Like, come on, share a little. He really is, he and Mindy have beautiful and amazing kids. Mike Ryu, our second presenter, or first, we'll see in order, is an assistant professor in the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science as well. He received his master's degree in computer science as well as a bachelor's degree in software engineering from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in 2018. Since then, he's worked in software industry in San Francisco Bay Area as a software engineer for over 4 years prior to coming to Westmont College in 2023. Mike is a software engineer turned computer science professor with a heart for people and a mind for coding. In addition to teaching, he serves as Director of Engineering at the Center for Applied Technology Lab, also known as our CAT Lab, where he mentors students in building purpose-driven technology. He and his wife, Jessica, are the proud parents of their daughter, Autumn. And again, just adding a personal note, Mike has only recently really joined our faculty, but oh, what a tremendous addition he's brought. Not only for his love for teaching and being very practical and helping students apply what they learn, but his giftedness, his committedness, so much so that his wife sometimes calls campus at 10 at night. Where are you, Mike? Come home, come home. But he really is a committed teacher. Both of them are educators extraordinaire, and it is a gift to work alongside them. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Guang Song and Mike Ryu.
Thank you so much. Such a wonderful, wonderful introduction. I'm really glad to be part of this program and to have an opportunity to present in front of you. And there we go. So today, as you probably know, our talk's title is A Human Approach to AI, Understanding Its Promises and Its Perils, and I'm really privileged to be speaking on the same stage as Dr. Song here. So I'll go ahead and start us off. Again, our names are Dr. Guang Song and Mike Ryu, and we both teach at the Mathematics and Computer Science Department at Westmont. With that, just want to go and let you know what we have coming up in terms of what we're going to talk about. First, got to set some background and context, and then we are going to talk about understanding AI. I think that's one area where we could spend some time, really, if we're going to understand the limitations or promises of something, we have to understand how it works, right? And then we're going to talk about usefulness and promises of AI, and then we'll talk about limitations and perils of AI on the darker side. And of course, all this has to amount to, so what? What am I taking away from this talk? So we'll get to that at the end with some questions and answer time. So we're hoping for about 45-minute presentation and a 15-minute Q&A session for you. Okay. So let's go ahead and kick this off with background and context. So we are here to all talk and hear about, of course, AI. Acronym for artificial intelligence, and a really great place for us to start here is to understand, okay, what is the really definition for all of this? And I was able to pull some quotes, starting with really early, back in 1955, as Stanford emeritus professor John McCarthy defined it as such: the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. Okay. And then the following definitions are more modern from very reputable sources. We have IBM, that says technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning, comprehension, problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. Okay. And then we have the Department of Defense, so US government definition from 2018 states, ability of machines to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, whether digitally or as the smart software behind autonomous physical systems. And this one is from Google. Google Cloud, but part of a really important backbone of our internet infrastructure, defined it as a set of technologies that enable customers or computers to perform a variety of advanced functions, including the ability to see, understand, and translate spoken and written language, analyze data, make recommendations, and more. How about IEEE, right? Publishers of very, very reputable, many journals on the side of computing and electrical engineering says, regardless of the exact definition, so implies here that there may not be an agreed upon exact definition, artificial intelligence involves computational technologies that are inspired by, but typically operate differently from, the way people and other biological organisms sense, learn, reason, and take action. Okay, what about NSF, National Science Foundation? Surely has some reputation to be able to define this word. NSF actually, in their video, explained AI as there isn't a bright line between what is artificial intelligence and what is computing. So the takeaway here is that there is no accurate mathematical definition of AI. And another important thing is our perception. Okay, sure, maybe there isn't a straight definition, but what are some of the things that we're seeing around it? So here are some of the news that you may have seen. So just this Monday, I searched AI changed life, and you saw articles such as your AI lover will change you 1 day ago, how data and AI are powering change at 180-year-old New York life. 25 experts predict how AI will change businesses and life in 2025, so on and so forth. But on the other side of things, you also, I'm sure, have seen these concerns bubble up. So reading the titles here, Labor head of Commons Tech Group warns no 10 not to ignore AI concern. Number 10, not to ignore AI concerns. And AI will drive growth, but only authentic intelligence can empower the world. And at the very bottom one, what that was really interesting, this is concerning a Malaysian church's concern on how to navigate AI tools and among the concerns that it may have on the ethical end of things. So I thought it would be fun to go ahead and feed all this information back to the AI, which we'll define a little narrowly in a bit, to see what kind of image it may have rendered. So putting it all together, letting it generate an image, and that's what it came up with. So please take a moment to enjoy. So some of the components that I see here, we have really big, very obviously a robot, right, that's painting perhaps the future of humanity. We have a lot of people that are engaged with their digital devices, perhaps with holographic displays. I found it interesting that this, what seems like a lady, looks really close to Mark Zuckerberg, but some has some facial markings. And I find it there are some components of surveillance cameras here. And then also there's this something that seems to be invading the world from the space. Isn't that interesting? So AI, we got to understand what it is first before we can talk more deeper into it. So let's go ahead and first disambiguate something. Okay. So I'm going to give you a quiz. See if you can recognize these icons. Would anyone mind to shout out what this icon represents? Wi-Fi connection. Some of you have this icon in the rear view mirror of your car. Blind spot detection, right? What about this one? So that's a phone and a subject in the middle of it, right? So that's blind spot detection, right? And then over on this side, facial recognition, which is when you take out your phone to take a photo of somebody, it puts the squares around people's faces because it sees that that's where people are, and it focuses on that focal distance. So these things, according to the definitions we saw earlier, right, a set of technologies that make recommendations. Hey, there's a car in the lane you're trying to merge into. Don't go there. And according to the Department of Defense definition, ability of machines to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as recognizing faces. We are really, really good at that, right? But now machines are able to do this. These fit the definition of very reputable sources, the Department of Defense and Google Cloud. But do we call these things AI? No, not today, because AI, this ability of machines to do intelligent things, have found their niche in our society and have since been given names such as blind spot detection and facial recognition. But you're all here because there's a big AI topic that's going around. I mean, these AI have been going around, but why is this certainly all of a sudden a talk that has to happen? Because we are really talking about generative AI. Right, so that is the same tool that created the picture earlier. So some of these things like Microsoft Copilot, Google's Gemini, DALL-E from OpenAI, down here a little hard to see, but ChatGPT, of course, and then we have Claude and Midjourney, image generating, text generating, sometimes video generating tools that can generate, but more accurately predict what's going to come next given the prompt. Right, so that's what we're talking about today. For the most part, but also today as in general. When you go up to somebody and say, hey, have you tried the new AI tool? People generally mean generative AI, like ChatGPT. Right? Also, a couple more terms here. We have artificial general intelligence, right? So generative AI is not to be confused with AGI, which is defined as a type of highly autonomous artificial intelligence intended to match or surpass human capabilities across most or all economically viable cognitive work. So this contrasts with narrow AI, which is limited to specific tasks like blind spot detection, facial recognition, so on and so forth. Right? And another term that goes beyond this level of almost human intelligence is artificial superintelligence, which is defined as AI that refers that is AGI, so artificial general intelligence that greatly exceeds human cognitive capabilities. AGI is considered one of the definitions of a strong AI. So is a SI, superintelligence, right? So we have narrow AI that can do very specific things and can only do the specific things, but we are now inching towards, as some suggest, into artificial general intelligence and soon ASI as well on the horizon. Okay? So, another thing that we got to understand is that when we talk about AI, whether it's narrow or strong, on today's computing technology, they all happen on a computer. Not too dissimilar from the computers you have in your pockets, computers you have on laptops such as this, right, or larger desktop computers or even supercomputers. They actually all share a fundamental mathematical definition. Unlike the AI's vague definition, there's a very mathematical definition. It goes something like this. Imagine a really, really long film strip. When was the last time you saw an actual film strip? Been a while, right? But you've probably seen one. Imagine that stretches infinitely to either end, right? And then we have a machine, a little machine that sits on top that can write stuff to it, and you can move the tape side to side in any direction, and you can write more stuff to it, and as you move the tape around, you can also read from the tape as to what's been written, or the film strip. Okay. Read what's written as it's been written. That is the fundamental definition of a computer. Now, how come it can do such amazing things has to do with this number. Would anyone like to try to read this number in English? This number reads as 400, that was easy, quintillion is the word there. And the unit for this is operations per second. Okay, so on your personal device, say something like a laptop, the reading and writing from a long film strip happens about 4 billion times a second. If you scale that up to a data center, a building full of computers, very fast computers, industrial level, then you will see 400 quintillion operations per second. So it's operating at an insanely fast capacity. That's what gives it a sense and perception of intelligence for us to even call it intelligence. Right? So I hope this demystifies a little bit as to what AI is running on. It's a really, really long film strip, and a little machine on top of it is reading and writing from it. That's it. Right? Now, because the number and speed at which it's operating is so fascinatingly fast, it can represent things like human brain. Not fully yet, but we have a model to do so. This, if you zoom into the brain, is a nerve cell called a neuron, and it does something relatively simple, although the devil's in the details. It takes in an input signal, and it is able to process it and pass it along to the neighbors. Okay, so if we go ahead and arrange it like this to show the neighboring neurons as well, and individual one of those neighboring neurons also do the same thing, and the rest of the neurons that are neighbors in the same layer do the same thing, and then the signal just propagates throughout your brain, such as this, and on and on and on, you have a basic working brain. Right? So this we call a neural network. It was both a statistic and biological model, but of course, computers don't have biological neurons. So instead, what do we use? Math. So instead of a biological cell, a neuron, we use mathematical formula that represents what a neuron might do. Not exactly, but what it could do at a simplified level. So instead of the neurons, we have a mathematical function, these nodes, these white circles, that can do something similar where it takes an input and it can propagate to the neighbors, and we have what's called a neural network. And one more component of this is that we also see how the weight or the heaviness or the thickness of the arrows have changed, right? Of course, our neurons just don't just randomly send out signals. In fact, if that happens, you have neurological disease, right? As we grow from childhood, infancy to childhood to adolescence and adulthood, we make these connections into the real world, and that strengthens certain neural pathways, such as when I go to mama, I get lots of hugs. And certain pathways weaken, so we learn. And these things, how the weight of these connections change, we call them weights in computing as well. And what needs to happen is that this needs to be learned, so hence the name machine learning, which is often associated with the term AI. How does this work? So think back to maybe grade school, middle school, right? You've probably seen something like this. Let's say that this, although it doesn't have the units, on the bottom axis is 0, 3, 6, 9, 12 of, let's say, hours since I have eaten. And then on the y-axis, 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20 is how many thoughts I have in my head per hour, food. The longer I wait, the more I think about food per hour, right? And if I chart that over different days, I might be able to see a trend. And I can probably try to attempt to draw a line of best fit, or a trend line. So let's try that. Draw one here. Well, that's terrible. That's not a good trend line at all. It's not representative of the trend. So why don't I move it down a little bit? Okay, move it down. Okay, so the steepness seems about right, but it's not at the right place. Now that looks about right, right? By making sure that the line fits close to the trend that the dots are representing, we have learned where that line should fit. So this is over a single-dimensional data over time. If we do this over 2 dimensions, the line instead becomes a surface, like a blanket. So it might look like, instead of a line, like that. To put the axes around it, there are 2 now independent variables, right? 2 things that I measure, and then the result of the prediction becomes the height of that blanket at different feature points. Right. Again, this can be learned through a process that which we won't go into the detail of, but that's how the weights of the neural network is determined. And if we do this, we can do things like predicting the next word in a sentence. And let's see if you are amazing and well-learned biological machines. Oh, say, can you? Wow, amazing, right? Okay, so that at the very, very basic is where the origins of AI of today came about, predicting the next word in a sentence. But no, it's way better than that. We had predictive text a long time ago. In my flip phone, if I typed in a sentence, it could tell me what's going to go next. So what changed? How about this? Let me give you some additional context, such as, assume an alternative universe where everyone is blind, but people can still hear perfectly fine. Now complete the sentence. Oh, say, can you? Amazing, right? And that was the latest breakthrough published by the Google researchers called Attention is All You Need. Instead of context, they call it the attention layer in the neural network, where it can bake in the context of the surrounding words of what it's trying to predict and understanding what positions of the words are and also how significant certain words are. Right? For example, as you're looking at this context, words such as assume not as important. But here is very important, right? So now we have means to learn the weights using this context information, and now AI started talking and predicting the next word in a sentence really, really intelligibly enough to the point where it can write a novel for you. Attention layer, big breakthrough. So that's where we're at right now. This understanding with this lens of what is a computer and how does AI work is really important in just having any subsequent conversations, but it's also lacking a lot in the mainstream coverage of the AI. Rarely people are asking, how does it actually work? What is running this? So I hope to enlighten you a little bit on that matter, and so with that, I would love to take it over to, I'll give it over to Dr. Song so that he can talk to you a little bit about the understanding AI.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. So, another major workhorse under AI is inference. So how do you gain new information from the existing knowledge? And that is, I have to introduce you this something called the Bayes rule. And so here's how it goes. Basically, suppose you know the only equation I'm going to show you is a simple equation. Now I'm going to show you one example to illustrate how this equation works. So this is saying that this whole thing is called the Bayes rule. Suppose you know the probability given a cause, how likely you'll produce this effect, and you also know just the probability for that cause to happen and the probability of that effect to happen. And then from that, you can have an inference. If you know the effect, you can predict how likely the cause will take place. So here's one example. Suppose that we know about science, technology, the medical science. We have learned about meningitis quite well. And this number said if you have a meningitis, then the chance you have a stiff neck is 80%. So this, from a lot of patients study, you figure out that number. So 80% of patients who have meningitis, 80% of them has stiff neck. And we also know, just by the information we collected, that meningitis usually happens to 1 out of 10,000 people. Another thing we know is 1 out of 100 people may have stiff neck. And then we ask this question, which is not obvious at all. And that question is, if someone has a stiff neck, what's the probability for having meningitis? And this can be done by inference. And much of the AI is applying this Bayes rule to infer new information from existing information. So it turns out if your work is out, the number is 8 out of 1,000. So the chance, when you have a stiff neck, the chance of having meningitis is still small. Now, when I think about AI, I have thought about it quite a bit. I'm teaching an AI class the second time at Westmont. And I think artificial intelligence really is not the most accurate name for it. Really, the better name, I think, is imparted intelligence. And that's why. Here's why. A computer really is just circuit, something like this, a simplified circuit here, showing here, and a computer doing nothing but running the current. And now, a computer program is a sequence of instructions that instruct the circuit to do certain things. And AI actually knows nothing about what it's doing, but merely runs the computer program given by its human designers. So in that sense, because of that, everything AI has is imparted. So now, you might ask, now what makes AI so powerful? So here's the reason. So one thing that makes AI powerful than our brain is this: AI has access to a much larger memory than our brain have. Our brain can store some information, can store lots of information, but a computer can store much more. Another thing is AI, current day AI, has access to a much larger data set and information. So that's another reason. And then still more, a much higher. Remember that numbers I cannot read 400 by many zeros? It has a much higher processing speed. So that all together make AI powerful. Now let's consider the usefulness of AI and also just the usefulness of computation in general. So here's a picture you probably all know. And so this is a moon landing in 1969. And the Atlantic in 2019 have an article on this. I will just read it for you. It says, without the computers on board the Apollo spacecraft, there would have been no moon landing, no triumphant first step, no high water mark for human space travel. A pilot could never have navigated the way to the moon, as if a spaceship were simply a more powerful airplane. It is not. The calculations required to make in-flight adjustments and the complexity of the thrust controls outstripped human capacities. So we cannot drive an airplane to the moon. But humans are smart, are intelligent enough to invent a computer to do the task for them. Now, for AI, the usefulness of AI is how much inference we can do with it. And over the last many centuries, the collective human knowledge is like a huge oil reserve. Imagine a very large oil reserve, and we only see the limit what's on the surface. Underneath, there's much more data, much more information to discover. So AI inference is able to bring some of it out. And so in a sense, the current day AI, especially the generative AI, is able to bring out something we already know, but we're not able to articulate. So here's another application of AI. I work in computational structural biology, and one of the main problems in structural biology is to predict protein structure. And many scientists have worked on this problem for the last 50 years. And in 2021, and Google DeepMind CEO and and he developed this program called AlphaFold. And they were able to solve the protein folding problem. But the thing is, really, I have my advisor when I was working in my prior institution, and he is a structural biologist, and he said, really, it's not AI solve the problem. Because in order for AI to solve the problem, AI has to be built, AI has to use, so the work of AlphaFold is built upon 50 years of millions, perhaps even more, hard work of many scientists, postdoc, graduate students. So AI is using the collective knowledge of the past many years And so basically what AlphaFold did is like the final click to solve the problem. But much preparation work, hard work has been done by our scientists. And you might know this work actually was rewarded the Nobel Prize, and him included, of chemistry in last year, in 2024. So the usefulness of AI as an example, I use AI in my teaching and research. So I teach computer programming. And right now I'm teaching a course on Python. And one time in my class, this was just a month ago, and I want to give my students some examples. And the examples I had at the time was from another course I taught years ago, and the programming language is Java. So I was thinking to convert my Java programs to Python so that I can give to my students. And I said, oh, that would take hours of work for me to do that. So what I did, I said, I can ask ChatGPT to do it for me. So I asked ChatGPT to do that, and it produced the program, but it does not work. It does not work. It made some mistakes. So here's the thing. It does the 99% work for me. But it made mistakes. And I have to know the Python well enough, I can quickly see where the mistake is. It takes me a few minutes to correct it, and the program is working. So instead of doing it on my own for 2 hours or 3 hours, I get done in 3 minutes. But I have to have the knowledge, understanding of Python deeply enough to see where the problems are, right? So AI cannot do everything for me. And I think now in the future, I have to be in the loop. So I also use AI in my research. I do research in computational biology, also right now to study just a developmental process of embryos. And so I asked ChatGPT to summarize information for me, but I have to know the field well. And I need to know it well enough to ask the right questions. And indeed, asking the right questions, for those of you who are teachers or who has gone through life a lot, asking the right questions is a major part of problem solving. I have to know what question to ask, right, in order to work together with AI to make good progress. And then there are times, I know what AI gave to me is not right. So when that happens, I do my own research to find out. So Mike, you can come pick up. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Song. All right. So let's talk about the promises of AI, now that we have a good understanding of what AI is. So let me draw out a little timeline here. So today we have a lot of tools that we've seen earlier, ChatGPT and the like. And in the very near future, almost as soon as, say, tomorrow even, or sometimes in certain applications yesterday, we will see a ChatGPT with a figurative arms and legs. So we call that agentic AI. So it is not just a chatbot that you can talk to and have a nice, pleasant conversation, or an angry conversation if you like. You can now ask it to do things for you, and it will be able to transact on certain digital transactions, such as sending a message, or making an appointment, or filling out a form. In fact, in the coming summer, we're hoping to transform some of the Westmont's own form-filling processes into an agentic AI like that, because it is nice to be able to talk to a bot and have it do some of that work for you. Coming up now is humanoid AI robots. So this has seen a lot of development in the recent days. One of the challenges that the robotics ran into was dexterity of human beings. Not only the dexterity in the mechanical sense, but also seeing an object and intuitively understanding and quickly understanding what the density and weight of an object would be so that we know exactly if we're picking up an egg, we cannot squeeze it too tightly. Things like that. But some developmental milestones were met on that front, so we will begin to have some humanoid AI robots, and stepping into the farther future, we will probably also have human-like AI robots, where the robotics will advance to the point where we can no longer easily distinguish from, say, 6 feet away, whether the being that we're talking to is a human or a robot. Yeah. So up until that point, though, we have this great promise of creative partnership, just like Dr. Song talked about. As we do our creative or research work, it can be an amazing partner, and alongside we can gain great efficiency. So as the robots become more and more anthropomorphized and become more human-like, I think some people also start to see it not only as a tool, but a companion. So we may have some synergetic, on the promise side, companionship with robots who are powered by this amazing AI, artificial general or artificial super. But of course, we have to wonder, well, what kind of world would we be living in if we are not able to distinguish the bots from humans, even in a physical sense? It's hard enough to do so right now with the text and then the material it's creating. It's obvious and sometimes natural to think that, well, do we have an AI overlord impending doom upon our world? And that's a good hook for us to talk about the limitations now of AI. So with that, I'm going to actually switch back to Dr. Song so he can start off the conversation with us, and then I'll finish off.
So let's take a look. What are some of the limitations? Again, this is just a rephrase what has been said before. AI knows nothing about what it's doing. It just runs the program given to it. And everything AI has is imparted by its human designer. And then here's the key. There are things we do not know how to impart. What we can impart is limited. There are things we do not know how to impart. And they are imparted to us by God. And we just do not know how to impart those, such as consciousness. Such as inspiration. The word inspiration here, you have an idea. You suddenly just have an idea. You have an inspiration. The word inspiration literally means breathe in. Someone breathes into you, giving you an idea. You got an inspiration. It's not from you. It's from above. So we do not know how to inspire a computer, right? And then, this love, this imagination of those, we do not know how to impart those. So what we can do, what we can impart to computer is very limited. And that's one major limitation of AI. There are many Psalms talk about it. And one of the Psalms, I love Psalms, by the way. Psalm 94 says, God, he who plants eyes, does he not see? He plants ears, does he not hear? And God, he who teaches men knowledge, knows the thoughts of men. They are but a breath. Do you know what AI have in the eyes of God is but a breath? And now if you go to Psalm 145, it says this about God. Great is the Lord, greatly to be praised. His greatness is unsearchable, comparing but a breath with unsearchable. That's the greatness of God. So, now the limitation of AI. Here's another thing, that AI works on the shoulder of our hard work. That's what AI does. AI cannot give you anything that cannot be inferred from the existing knowledge. So if Einstein have not developed this famous equation, AI will not do that for you. AI is not able to create this. And then another thing about AI, because it's predicting, remember that inference, if I have a stiff neck, how likely I have meningitis? AI can give you a probability. AI can predict the next word for you, but always a probability. So AI is probabilistic by nature, not accurate. It can perform a huge amount of preliminary work for you, but you have to be in the loop. It can serve a great secretary for you, but you have to be the leader to work well for you. And now I'll pass this to Mike to enlighten us on the yeah.
Thank you. I have a fun example for you. I asked ChatGPT, I need an image of a group of analog watches all displaying 6:14 p.m. I predicted that's probably roughly the time we'd be at. We're at 6:17 now, so I was close. So what does it do? All watches are pointing to 10:10. And this is because the AI, when it learned the weights, when we trained it, it learned based on the images of watches online. Predominantly, they all point to 10:10 because that's when watches look the greatest. It's highlighting the logo in the middle. If you look closely, the logo is also gibberish and nothing. You'll also see certain straps just disappear into the desk. It does not know what is or what isn't. ChatGPT actually dropped a new update that greatly improved its image generation capability. And I tried this one more time. It actually dropped it last night. I was playing around with it. Yet, it still cannot do this. And sometimes it will say, here we go, here are a bunch of watches pointing at 6:14 p.m. so confidently wrong, but confident nonetheless. Very great illustration of the limitations. Now with that, the perils of AI. And for here, I'm just going to walk through some of the great literature that has come out on this. And we have to go back to the idea that all this training data, what taught the AI? Right? We have to ask the question. And there is a great book by the Harvard professor, Shoshana Zuboff, that talks about this concept of surveillance capitalism, which unilaterally claims human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. Okay. We have to understand the why AI is so strong seeming, right, or intelligent right now is because it was all based on our behavioral data, whether it's your text messages or your shopping habits online, what that may have been. Our behavior, anytime we're connected to Wi-Fi or cellular network, is being mined like people mine coal or oil. Right? So we are the source of it. And were you aware that you were being mined like oil or coal? Probably not consciously. And there are other books that have come out. Weapons of Math Destruction by Cathy O'Neill, Automating Inequality, Virginia Eubanks, Ruha Benjamin's Race After Technology, and Unmasking AI by Joy Buolamwini. They all talk about what is known as AI bias, and then the blind spot of the AI. What is available as public data have typically been made available by the people of power, people of privilege. Right? So if you're in the marginalized groups, if you were on the side of the history, for example, in the book Automating Inequality, it talks about the concept of a poorhouse. Does anyone remember what poorhouses were? Yeah, if you haven't heard about it, I was shocked when I first learned about it myself, because certainly before my time, it used to be a place where we gathered up poor people who could not afford to live on their own in relatively horrid conditions, and many terrible things have happened in that pattern. So, as an example, the incrimination of the poor and are unable to provide themselves continues. That pattern, because it is within our human data, our behavior, our past, it is now also being imparted into the AI. And they are now more than ever obscured because now they are mathematical equations that only few can understand. So with that, the latest work on this I am really enjoying. I'm reading this book right now. Is called The AI Mirror by Shannon Valor, who is actually a virtue ethicist and a moral philosopher, but who's been studying computing ethics for quite some time now. She just released this book, and here's a quote from the book I would love to read to you. For many, technology offers hopes for the future, yet rather than open new futures, today's powerful AI technologies reproduce the past. It's not a window into the future, just like Alice in the Looking Glass, she uses that analogy. Just like narcissists, looking into the mirror of reflection on still waters and thinking there is somebody beyond that mirror surface. It's not a window into the future, it's a mirror, right, that can be impeding and reflecting our past back onto us. This results in a flawed mirror reflecting the same errors, biases, and failures of wisdom that we strive to escape. The mistakes we made in the past, whether we like it or not, are part of our behavioral data, and they are in the AI's behavior. And here's a chilling quote. Now that we can represent human mind and computer can think for us, how fortunate for leaders that men do not think. This quote is often attributed to this guy, allegedly. Right. As we move into the future, as the leaders become more and more powerful with seemingly infinite expansion of computing capabilities, application of human dignity and intelligence will lead to scary futures. So now that we're duly scared, so what? So I have a slide for Dr. Song, and then, oh my God.
Thank you, Mike. This is I think my last slide here. Really, there's no need for us to feel threatened by AI. AI, in my point of view, is always a servant, a tool. An AI or robots may do some work we do, that's okay, we'll find something better to do. And there's no need to be threatened by AI or robots. You know, you probably have seen some dump trucks. Some of you have seen dump trucks work in some mine, coal mine or some. They have huge dump trucks. We were never threatened by dump trucks, and we shouldn't be threatened by AIs either. As long as we are the driver, we are the drivers. So,
Thank you, Dr. Song. So what, right? Do not feel threatened, but do engage with a cautious eye. I don't know if anyone's a fan of this show. It's called Black Mirror, representative of what the screens become when they're off, black mirrors. It's a show on Netflix, and on the pilot episode of season 2, the premise of the episode is that a single mom who was recently widowed is offered to create a human-like clone of her late husband. Back in 2013, when this episode came out, this may have been a pure fiction. How could you create a clone of a person? But today, right now, I'm fairly confident I can spend about a weekend making a digital clone of my beautiful and wonderful wife who's sitting back there, based on our 13 and a half year of relationship history, all the text messages, the voicemails, the emails that we have. This is no longer fiction. If I can do this, imagine large corporations, what they can do. They are certainly capable of it. Yet, as the ideas of science fiction is becoming real, many are still stuck in an attitude of, why bother? I'm not a technologist. I don't really care for all this new fads. But in certain areas of our lives, AI is truly transforming human livelihood in ways that is difficult to realize or even sense if we're not actively engaged with the pervasive implementation and impacts of the AI as we discovered. So we hope that more people will instead ask, how should we engage with AI? I don't know if anybody recognizes this picture. This person said, we should have to expect the machines to take control. His name is Alan Turing, the film strip that I told you about. He was a mathematician, British mathematician, who solved the enigma and helped Britain win the war, World War II, and have come up with that idea of a computer we call Turing machines in the industry. And predicting into the future from the 1950s, he thought that if machines get advanced enough, we have no chance. If we were to go head to head against advanced machines like artificial superintelligence, we have no chance to win. But this isn't to say that this is our inevitable future, it really isn't. It's not our fate, because we're not there yet. We have not fully given it the control. We are still in control, like Dr. Song said. We are still in the driver's seat, albeit of a very mighty machine. So here is kind of my 3 concluding remarks, is that human-first culture to a brighter future is where we should strive to move forward. And how do we do that? AI overtake of our lives, as much as the fiction is becoming reality and some interest, corporate interest perhaps, will try to take advantage of it, it won't occur if we do not let it. This is actually a pretty well-developed consensus among the AI ethicists and computer scientists, including some of the Nobel laureates and Turing awards, which is the Nobel Prize of the computer science world. But we still have to know what it looks like when AI starts to inch upon our control, our agency, right? So far, it has happened. The books that I have shown you have talked about it aplenty, but again, we do not hear about it in our mainstream discussions. Preventing applications of human dignity requires a culture shift. I have mulled over this. Okay, the AI is coming. What shall we do to prevent certain harms? And I've thought about it and have landed at the conclusion we are in a need of a culture shift. If you think this is really hard or maybe impossible, I have two great counterexamples. Sports. In a day and age where we can fly past continents in a matter of hours, throwing a ball really fast and accurately when a missile can hit a specific target the size of a stamp across the continent should be obsolete, but it's not. We care so much about it. There are billions of dollars of revenue going in and out. Sports. Music. We can press a key on a computer, and it will produce a perfect note. You never have to tune it, never have to think twice. Exact frequency, exact tonality, the way you want it. Yet, we applaud at the pianists. We applaud at the violinists. Why do we do that? I think it's culture. We somehow cultivated a culture that we care about certain things as human beings. It's not all about efficiency. It's not all about the profit margins. It's not all about the viability. And this culture shift, I claim, it starts with me and you. So I really am encouraged by the turnout that I'm seeing today. Tonight is your first step. You care about this topic, therefore you came. Learning more, staying curious, engaging with it. If you haven't yet, I encourage all of you to go home. If you haven't yet, go try ChatGPT out. Have a conversation with it, right? Learn what are some of the limitations. Ask the same question I did. Give me a clock or groups of clocks that show 6:28 p.m. and see what you get. Let your human heart, that is unique to us, guide your actions. And if you are a believer like me and Dr. Song and many of our folks at Westmont, I hope we continue to lean on the creator of human dignity and intelligence for wisdom, because this, surely, perhaps for the first time in our human history, is undeniably greater than all of us. So thank you again for coming out and engaging with us. And now we are happy to take any questions you might have. Yes, please.
It sounds like I'm going to have to buy 4 or 5 different AI programs to get truth.
That's interesting. I am fascinated that you mentioned truth. I think I would first caution that the current major AI development is led by the large corporations. So to give you an example, and they are, of course, very conscious about their public image because of the stock prices and so on and so forth, right? There was a big round of ridicule against Google when their image generation tools, when asked to draw a picture of founding fathers, they all came out as African Americans. So there are, as you can clearly tell, certain tweakings that's happening behind the scenes. So I would be very wary of whether you're seeking, if the AI is the right place to seek the truth. However, in terms of the viability of AI tool as a great companion for you, whether it's for your scholarly work or hobbying, what have you, I would say many of these, because they are now competing, have free versions that you can go ahead and try without even having to purchase. So I think trying a bunch of them out, again, engaging, just try a bunch of them out, see what you like the best, give it some difficult tasks that you think are difficult and see how they fare.
So just
Yes.
to follow up, if I ask the same question of each one of these brands,
For the most part, they are statistic and probability based.
so what connects that together?
So yes, that's a great question. So the reason why they all kind of seem to at least speak of a general truth, there is consensus, is because they are based on a relatively congruent internet data that's been out there publicly.
The data.
Yeah, so it's really what trained it, just like we are, right? If you went to the same school, you likely speak of the same philosophy, so you can kind of think of it like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, along with your lines, could the computer have been saying, looking back to the ancient or beyond ancient times in Africa when the founding fathers were dark?
So I would say.
Am I getting that? Could you repeat the question, please?
Oh yes. So could the AI, in the case of the Google, depicting the founding fathers as perhaps the founding fathers of Africa, and perhaps misinterpreted it? I have a couple of speculations as to why that may have not been the case. So first and foremost, it will. So for example, if it asks you to tell it, if you ask it to tell you a story, and just give it very, long time ago in a faraway land, and kind of stop there, the most likely, probabilistic chance, it will tell you a very generic Goldilocks story, because that's the story that's been told the most. So when you say founding fathers, just like we do in normal context, most likely what you're referring to are the people who founded the United States. And know also that you're speaking in English, right? So you're typing it in English, and it also knows where you are by where you are connecting to. So it should be able to stitch those informations together and infer that you were probably talking about the founding fathers of the United States.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
What's the distinction, or is there one between AI and algorithms, like Amazon would use?
Absolutely, love it. Algorithms does have a definition. It's quite simple. It's discrete steps, so separate steps to complete a task. So a recipe that you follow to cook a dish is an algorithm. As simple as peanut butter and jelly, that's great. An algorithm, such as a neural network algorithm that trains the massive neural network that can speak human language, is also an algorithm. So algorithm is a much more general concept. The steps, discrete steps that gets you to complete a task. Yeah. And a gentleman in the very back, please, who's visually impaired. Sorry.
Yeah, so two quick things. First of all, I wanted to point out that AI can not only make images, but also describe images. If you take a picture or share a picture. So that's very useful for blind people and others who, for whatever reason, can't understand something. As far as giving AI research problems, the one thing I was experimenting with was having AI generate a report about voting records of politicians, so more like a social science type research problem. And models have very different AI tools, even different versions of them have very differing results about that. The latest version of ChatGPT, even the free version, can do a lot of that. But I guess I'm wondering, how likely is it that even more sources will be added for future models so they can do even more of that? And I guess also, if we have students who get discouraged if AI fails to generate the right report, how do we keep encouraging them to do more research, even using a longer way besides AI, because the information is still out there in a different way.
Yes, absolutely. I do think that when it comes to pedagogy, or the methodology of teaching, I'm really excited to be a teacher right now at Westmont College, where we get to explore the liberal arts. And I really truly think that we are at the precipice of a human development where we first got the printing press. Now, the students have this amazing capability they've never had before. And as a result, the onus is on the teachers to dramatically shift the teaching methods. And I can give you an example. There's a business professor from a renowned business school the name is escaping me, who has now instructed the students to come up with, instead of 10 in a semester, 100 business plans that are impeccable. Right? Now you have AI. 10 business plans might have been a reasonable thing in a 15-week course. But now that you have AI who can do the groundwork for you, do 100, but it better be perfect. Right? I think we really have to shift the way we think, and it really is based on the culture shift that is really necessary. Okay, and the gentleman in the beanie in the back, please.
So my name is Parents, and I actually build AI automated systems for businesses, and I have a question for you, because I know how you said you wanted to start implementing some of these at Westmont College. Yes. So my question to you is, do you think that these systems will start to take more jobs away or provide more job opportunities? Why do you think so?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the question was, we are trying to build some tools at Westmont College as well to use these AIs. When it comes to employment, right, AI taking over the jobs, are they giving us more opportunities, or are they just taking away jobs and leaving us in the dust? Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So here's one example. When GPS came about, right? So the global positioning system and navigation, digital navigation that's based on that. And this is coming from a book called Prediction Machines, by the way. The London cabbies did not go away, right? So the value of the London cabbies, the folks who drive cabs, their value was they knew every back alley of the London's very complex and old streets, right? But the GPS is coming about didn't necessarily take them entirely out of business. Now what it does is that it, in my opinion, and thinking mathematically, refactors or factors out parts of our task that can be delegated to the machines. So I think about the same thing. So I predict in about maybe within a 50 years, I think that's a reasonable time frame, there will be a brain and computer interface that can talk to each other. So I can take a look at Kim, Dr. Danu, and just by exchanging the gaze, that I'll be able to get a compassionate understanding of what she's thinking of. No language. Just the computers communicating and then delivering the electrochemical signals into our brain. So if that's the case, right, then what is something that I ought to teach my students, right, so that they can bring their human value? So it really gets us to rethink about the jobs, right? So if spelling is going away, right, no one really cares about typing anymore, right? If that's going away, if that was important then, that is no longer. Then if we take all those things away that can't be replaced by the humans, what is the essence of the human being that we got to think about? So I think there are a lot of opportunities there. Some think that the AI taking away relatively menial or tedious jobs will open up humans for more creativity and free time to do certain things, but of course they're the other side of the coin. Right now it's all about ruthless efficiency gains and driving the profit margins and not really thinking about the human value, the human soul. So in that case, we can also imagine a future. It's not only the jobs, but our livelihoods are dramatically changed in a negative way because AI, as it is doing now, will oppress certain groups. So yeah, it's a bit of a roundabout way to answer that. I think there are mixed futures that we can foresee from here. But at the time being, again, I keep driving back to the point, I think we get to engage. I think we have a say, at least so far. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, and the gentleman over there, please. Yes.
I really liked what Dr. Song was saying about limitations, and I really value the fact that you referenced the Psalms. So my question is, at Westmont, right, you get to teach those that will be in the driver's seat,
Yes.
right? So I'm curious, how are the students reacting to this? What does that look like in your classroom as you kind of delve into providing a biblical worldview or Christian worldview? What kind of response are you getting from the students as they kind of, and obviously this is the value of Westmont College, right? So I'm curious if you can speak to that.
Absolutely. Would you like to respond? Oh, okay. So I am, fortunately teaching senior seminar. So this is the area where we job prep the students so that they're ready to go in the professional world. We do a project as a culmination of their work here at Westmont College, technical work, and then we also do a lot of philosophical work, reading all those books that I mentioned. It ranges. The student's response, particularly coming from a Christian background, ranges. That I have a student who is calling humanoid robots a blasphemy. And is unwilling to engage with AI tools. And we have students who have fully embraced it. They have bought early on the license to ChatGPT, and now that have become the day-to-day. And I actually see the pros and cons on both sides, actually. On the blasphemy side, I'll never use it. Now they're missing out on an opportunity to engage and be the person, a leader in this space to point the world into a direction that we ought to be moving in. But he's now really championing the human integrity and what the creator had intended for us, and that he can be a leader in that space. On the other side of daily embracing it, they're better positioned than ever to understand the limitations of it right now and where they can come in to fill that. So I think in terms of applied AI, which is really needed, I think that's where that person can shine. But also there's a lot of dangers of the AI just becoming a crutch. Right? You're not developing the muscles you ought to. And it's really difficult to discern, okay, how much of the usage and what matters is becoming a crutch and what part of it is natural and is helpful for me. As a professional who has worked and developed my regimens before ChatGPT came about, I know where the boundary is. But it's really difficult as students and younger students are learning and grappling with, how do I use this? Where is this thing? And really falling into the danger of like, I can just get an answer if I ask it a question. Yeah. Yeah, and gentleman in the back, please.
John Lennox, the Irish mathematician, has a book 2084. Did you get a chance? Have you had a chance to?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And please.
So, two questions if I could. One was, I was under the impression that we're thinking in the not too distant future that AI will be able to learn and sort of teach itself.
Mm-hmm.
So that it will no longer just be what we can give it, what we can impress on it.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, examples come in mind. So one is NVIDIA right now is doing a lot of investment in robotics as well. So in terms of training the AI, the AI robotics, what they're doing now is they're putting the robots not in a physical world, in a virtual world. So they don't have physical forms, but their limitations and what their servos and motors can handle and weights they can handle are all simulated in a simulation environment, much like the movie Matrix. We're trapping those robots in that simulated environment so that they can learn. These are all very trial error basis, a lot of the reinforcement learning where they are rewarded in a mathematical sense if they do the right thing, learn how to walk correctly, learn how to navigate the warehouse, so on and so forth. So that's one way, but that's also very much human guided. Human has to be in the loop for that. And another example that comes to mind is OpenAI. When it launched ChatGPT in its really nascent stage, it had two objectives. I was told by Gretchen Huizinga, who is a Microsoft researcher. One was does this work? If you put it out into the world, will it actually work? And the other one, they said, was to build a data flywheel, a self-sustaining repository of data, because as people use it, guess what? You say to it also become the things that they can train, right, the machine on, right? That your data that you're inputting it, whether you are aware of it consciously or not, is raw material they will mine to self-sustain their business. So I think in terms of the algorithms, in terms of steps that they need to take, I think the machines are still at a point where human input is necessary. And that's also because machines can sometimes do things that we may not expect. If we ask a machine to come fetch me a coffee, that is your objective, right? A really intelligent machine might think okay, in order for me to fetch a coffee, the coffee machine has to be on, it has to be dripping coffee, and then the cup must be full. But if somebody comes and unplugs me, then I cannot fetch the coffee. So it is then more important for me to protect that connection. And who's going to come in and unplug me? Likely a human being. So perhaps it's important that I also eliminate all the other human beings who might disrupt me. So it can really go haywire, and we have not yet seen the expansion of how terribly that can be. So the responsible thing for us to do is to have human in the loop still. Yes, right away.
Recently, a week ago, I was in Milwaukee at a college preparatory school, giving a little talk on AI in a writing classroom. And I had a 4-page single-spaced conversation with ChatGPT about ChatGPT. And I made the point that a lot of its courtesies and so forth seem to be mirroring my own. And so I talked about the dangers eventually.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a mirror, so what you were talking about there was directly part of my conversation with ChatGPT. And but then it turned it around and said, but you as human beings need to be mindful of that even apart from your work with AI. That if you are looking only for those things that reinforce your predilections, you're going to get only those things that reinforce your predilections.
Absolutely.
And you'll be increasingly trapped in a kind of closed system. So I thought that was interesting that ChatGPT issued the warning.
Yes.
And I don't know where that's coming from. It didn't say where its sources are, how it comes up to that conclusion.
Yes.
Maybe it's reading the books that you...
I would assume so. It does know about the books. I can tell you that much. So any kind of news sources, right, it's coming out, social media posts, it's reading all of them. So you can kind of expect it to a degree. And you can sometimes ask it, hey, what was your training cutoff? So meaning that when were you cut off from the internet so that you no longer learn the model that you're interacting with? And it will tell you, and that you can experiment with that to see what kind of results you get. If you ask a question that goes past that, yeah. Gentleman, this sweater in the back, please.
Something similar to what he's saying in a practical suggestion. And do you work with characters that you can build, and how do you train them? And are they using just your information, or they're combining information? Do you have any suggestions
Yes, so I believe you're talking about these, perhaps a character.ai or those kind of applications where.
Basically, you can section off and then you say, I want you to work with this set of data
Mhm.
as opposed to the general set of data.
That's right. So there are very specific techniques that actually one that we are using at Westmont to build at Westmont.ai called the retrieval augmented generation, where you can use the capabilities of the artificial brain, but also at the same time give it these are the sources of truth, right? Look at these things and generate your answers based on that.
Or you like the songs or something that would only go with that.
That's right. So there are some ways and there are some other techniques that you can use to fine tune what kind of responses you can get out of that.
Suggestions on how to use it?
So right now, at a consumer level, so if you're a computing professional, right now those kind of retrieval augmented generation is best represented as Google's Notebook LM is the product. So it can do things like you can upload, so it's meant for students, the learners. You upload all your notes and it will generate a 2-person back and forth podcast that you can listen to based on your notes. Right, so there are some, I will look for the application that use that concept. Hey, upload your information and it will generate content based on your work. The last night what I was playing with was image generation based on my family portrait. Turn it into a cartoon, right? So there are some applications where it will specifically ask for your input, and then you can expect that they will use that as the primary source as opposed to whatever other general training that has received. But other than that, I would say the development is still continuing on that front. But we'll see more and more applications, I'm sure of it. Yes. How are we doing on time, by the way? It's currently at 6:47.
About 10 minutes.
Oh, 10 minutes. We're still doing good. Okay. So yes, the lady in the glasses, please.
You mentioned that God has provided our attributes. I was a little surprised to see that. I wonder when we've created a human that is indistinguishable from a real human,
Yes.
what would you consider that to be? A God-created human or something else?
So here's a bit of I love to kind of think about apologetics and really trying to connect apologetics to the physical scientific world is something I like to daydream about a lot. It's a person of being a nerd. The way I think about the God's creation is that the creator exists in a higher dimensional world than we do. So we live in an XYZ coordinate world where we can move around in a 3D space, we have volume, and then we are stuck on a linear timeline where the time always marches forward. But the more I ponder on this, I am very convinced that the creator who's able to, for example, as the Bible says, that 1,000 years is like a day and a day is 1,000 years, that being is not restrained to a singular linear timeline. And if he can be multiple places at once and multiple beings at once, that does not hold true in a 3D world that we live in. So my presupposition is that the God exists in a higher dimensional world, and that his image is a higher multiple dimension projection, much higher than 3D projection onto our world. And to put it easily, this is a 3D object, right? But if I took a picture of this, maybe just the bottom of this water bottle, you would see a circular shape. Now that's a 2D projection of a 3D object. So that's how I understand the God's creation, is that he has restricted, for his grace, into a world where we can easily comprehend and navigate. So if we are stuck in a dimensional world that is much restricted than a world that God created us, then we have very physical, as in physics, limitations as to how far we can create and how much we can create. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Was it a follow-up? If there's a follow-up, I'm happy to.
I have a question
Yes.
about AI-generated art.
Yes.
I think we've seen examples of that even at places like Sullivan Goss Galleries here. There's been an exhibit at the Computer History Museum.
Yes.
The algorithms create something that is unique. Now, the fact that an algorithm can create an artifact that is unique, does that require us to redefine what we mean by creativity? Because I think one of you said earlier on that creativity was something of which artificial intelligence was incapable.
I do think that we should refine it. I don't know if we should redefine it, but I think we should really refine it in a way that, okay, this long film strip that can read and write is now doing the things that once we thought wasn't possible. Great. But then we still have an inkling feeling that we are still superior to that. I mean, I don't know if anyone here truly believes that you are just a simple biomechanical machine, right? We believe in things such as souls, right? And coming from a higher being. So that's what's really making things exciting for me as a teacher. And as I'm getting these questions from you and my students, I have to be able to answer to them and to myself, okay, what is it then? What is the true essential definition of my creativity that the machine cannot replicate? And I truly think that the work such as Shannon Valor's work is the forefront of that. And I highly recommend the AI Mirror. And just give you another example of this. So the human physiology, right? So for example, our gut microbe, and this is still a very forefront of our neurobiology research, is that our gut microbes, right? The microbes that live in our gut actually send neurotransmitters up our neurotransmitter path up to our brain to give us emotions or certain other diseases or impact the way we think and feel. Right? Machines do not have that in its essence. Again, it is a very simple mathematical model that's operating really, really fast. So I think there are opportunities for us to really examine, okay, what is different then, and answer that question to try to refine what creativity is in a truly human sense. Yes, sir.
I just read an article about the competition between all the nations that's going on right now. And it particularly focused on India. And the statistic they had was that India is producing 10 times the engineers that we are in this country now.
That's right.
And the major corporations are sending their mind work to India.
Yes.
Because there's not going to be any tariff, you know, and they are building big facilities over there. And I don't know whether you have any feel for what's going on with different nations, but it made it look like India is really the future for this.
Absolutely. Only caveat I would have there is that India and China both have a lot more population. So I'll look at perhaps the per capita numbers. But I know that they are very engineering focused. They're very science, technology, engineering, and math focused. So is East Asia. And funnily enough, I drive it back to the culture point. At some point along the way, I think we have lost the emphasis on education, the value of good education, and our fervor for being the world leader in technology. Perhaps that's what we dream of and what we hope that America is today. But in our homes, do we talk about how important it is to learn math and struggle with math and rejoice in the failure when you fail a math course? Therefore, you go and do it more until you get better? I really drive it back to that culture. I think I know I came from South Korea myself. I came when I was in middle school, and when I landed in the United States, the middle schoolers were doing third grade math in South Korean third grade math, and nobody cared. Nobody cared. I was so shocked. They're very, very different factors. I'm not going to overgeneralize, oversimplify, but we got to want to be good at technology. We got to care that this is the way forward, and perhaps even the way of survival. And I really think that that's where the difference lies. Yeah. And then, yes, please, ma'am.
So in this room, collectively, I would say that we have a depth of foundational learning and life experiences. So with our children that are in the younger stages of middle school and they don't have the foundational learning per se or life experiences, how are you navigating AI with your own children and how you interface and interconnect with it?
Dr. Song, with older children, would you like to advise on this question? My daughter is 2.5, so I'm thinking about it.
I have 4 children, and my oldest is almost 21 at Westmont. We love Westmont. My second is, he'll be 19. He's at Westmont too. And then we have one 15 years old and one 11 years old. They're at Providence. So here's the thing that I think technology can be easily a distraction, such a trap, such a distraction. So we do not give our children phones. This is just our family. You talk to me. I'm just speaking, represent my family, my wife and myself. We do not give our children smartphones until they go to college. And so we care about. Perhaps that's answer your question. Yeah. Yeah.
I was curious, like in school, right? The kids are now using. I see education going very divided between kids that are learning to critically use the prompts in AI and ask the right questions versus kids that I feel like our education system is not teaching kids how to use AI, so then they just use it to do the thinking for them. And so now we have what I would say is going to be a huge divide between thinkers and non-thinkers. And how do we address that with our children? And I completely agree. My children, we waited until they were 16 to give them phones, and they're in the process of that. But they still are in a learning environment with iPads and different applications.
Yeah.
And so how do we?
We're not. I think the importance is not seclude them from technology, but just to guard that. And what's the right amount of usage of technology? And in how we encourage them to think, to reflect. I struggle with that because there are so many temptations to just let the computer do it for you or to Google for it. But really we would like our children to be deep thinkers. And in this day of age, that's challenging. But I think it's important to know there's a verse from Psalms 119. It says, "Turn my eyes from looking at worthless things. Give me a life in your way." So I think there are many things that we should help our children, and we should protect them from beholding them.
One last question, please.
As a father and as somebody who's trying to do deep thinking and analysis, I think it's really interesting that for my experience with OpenAI, and this is a question that I have for you guys, it seems like while the data set is completely skewed, or the data set has been collected in a very skewed, scary way through all of our social media interactions, the resulting guidance that the AI has been providing me in my thought process has led me to believe that it's more benevolent than I had expected. And is that something that you have experienced? And it's something that for me, with trying to raise thinkers and trying to raise children that are going to be inheriting the world and trying to build the world in a way that's going to benefit the earth and its people, I'm seeing AI as a very positive thing. And I had never thought that I would see it that way, seeing how the major learning mechanism was harvested in such a non-benevolent way. How would you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree. I do have to give hats off to the companies that have really tuned the tone of the AI models and the chatbots so that it speaks in a certain way. So that's one, because the internet by itself is not a very benevolent place, as you know.
No, I cannot protect my children from finding nudity.
Right.
No matter what I do.
Absolutely.
No protection. So
Right.
I have to follow the model of keeping them off.
Right, absolutely. As I think about I think this is my challenge for me too. Now I'm tasked as a father myself to a very young child in being able to somehow impart to her, or at least inspire her to learn what she sees and hears, and from that discern what is akin to an intention or a soul, or the essential definition of a human. The one danger that I see, I do think that in educational settings, just the sociological effect of you can ask questions without no judgment whatsoever. It is not capable of judgment. That opens up so much capabilities for learning. I think that's fantastic. I benefit from it every day. But also at the same time, we cannot abdicate our children from the learning opportunity of dealing with judgment, right? And being vulnerable among the humans who will look at you the funny way. So that's a bit of a scary challenge for me too, is that just because what you are dealing with is of comfort to you, is beneficial to you, does not necessarily mean that that is currently setting you up for success in the future. And now, again, this is kind of, I could come back to the idea of like, it must be like when people first started learning how to read. I mean, as a teacher, like, what do? They're coming up to you now and correcting you for the first time in history. How do you adjust to that? And it's a hard question. It's not an answer question, in my opinion, at least not for me, but I will continue to ponder, how do I teach my students, my children, such that we become a generation that we can discern a real human-created being behind a screen versus what is just there as a surface, or even if it's indistinguishable then, right? So how do we learn to appreciate what is true and there versus what is simply mimicked probabilistically? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I think that's all the time we have for the moment.